Welcome back to the channel. I hope you had a good winter / Christmas / whatever holiday you happen to celebrate break. Yeah, back to the channel. I just recently finished reading Karate-Do, My Way of Life by Gichin Funakoshi. I've been studying karate for quite some time now. If I remember correctly, my sensei gave me this book. And I eventually got around to reading it. It's actually not that big of a book. It's like 120 some odd pages. It doesn't really have, say, narrative flow is probably not the word I'm looking for. It's a translation, obviously, but it's basically Gichin Funakoshi talking about his life and how he got into karate, how it became a major influence on his life, and then how he was able to bring karate from Okinawa, where it originated, to the rest of Japan, and from there to the rest of the world. So, if you're at all curious about karate and how it made that transition from being primarily an Okinawan art / sport, etc., and how it then was transmitted to the rest of the world, this is really good. The translator did an excellent job. I believe that Funakoshi is a good writer, and it shows in the skill that the translator was able to then take his words and adapt them readily for English. So there is a narrative, but it's very loose. He does start with his childhood and his formative years, etc., and he goes through how he was able to, he was born premature, and so it talks about that and how he found karate and used it to improve his health. And he then talks about how he learned karate from various masters in Okinawa. And karate really changed the trajectory of his life. He actually studied to be a school teacher and was a school teacher for a number of years in Okinawa. Later, because of his connections with karate and his obvious skill in karate, he was invited to Tokyo to do various demonstrations, and from there he was able to begin teaching karate to the rest of Japan, and by extension the rest of the world. Now, Gichin Funakoshi, he was born in the 1800s. I don't have the date right in front of my eyes, so I don't remember what it was. But he lived through Japan's turbulent transition from its more feudal roots to its more modern roots, and so, or shouldn't say modern roots, but basically, he starts out the story talking about how the top knot, which was a characteristic hairstyle of the aristocracy when he was young, was actually outlawed. And the reason for the outlawing of that particular hairstyle, not because the rest of the world may have thought it was funny. I'm one of those. I think it's kind of funny looking. But the reason for that was to destroy the distinction between the classes and to bring Japan into the more modern era. And because of that, that colored some of what happened in his formative years. He was actually born to a poor family, but still from the upper class. And because of that, he had to deal with some of the repercussions of either wearing this top knot or not wearing the top knot. And so it really is an interesting historical picture of that progression through Japanese culture at that particular time. And then he does go into World War II, and it is endearing that he talks about some of his former students. He said that when World War II started, it was a common occurrence for one of his students to come to him and say, "Sensei, I've just been called to serve the emperor," basically. And he talks about the absolute devastation that he felt when some of his students never returned. So it really does delve deeply, not only into what drove Funakoshi to bring karate to the rest of the world, but also like him as a person. There's certain things that he talks about that not only did karate influence, or because of the influence of karate on his life, he felt it was important enough to share it with the rest of the world, but it built the philosophy that he lived by. And he was a very honorable person. From my reading, I, not having met the man, can only go by what I've read here. And he had a driving sense of what was right, and not just in his comportment, but also in the way to use karate. He never let any of his students use karate to settle an argument. He said that is wrong. And I found his approach to teaching. He said, karate is an art for self-defense. He said you never use it offensively. There is actually one story that he talks about in his book, where he felt that he was in the wrong, and I myself felt that he had done the right thing personally, which was kind of interesting. He said that there's this one time, it was after World War II, and Tokyo was recovering. He said that by good luck, mostly, the place that he was staying escaped the destruction, and he was at if I remember right, it was a poetry reading. And the poetry reading went late into the night, and he was walking home. And at this point in his life, I think he was in his 70s. So he was an older gentleman. And he was walking home, and he was carrying a bag and an umbrella. And a man jumped out and demanded that he give him cigarettes. And Funakoshi said that there were two things in his life that he had never picked up. One was drinking, and the other was smoking. He probably drank in social situations, but he said that drinking was not part of his life. It wasn't something that he did, and neither was smoking. So he didn't actually have any cigarettes in this bag. And he told the man, he said, I don't have any cigarettes. And at the time, he probably didn't have any money on him either. He said that just by looking at this man and his body language and everything, that he could tell that he was probably the first man that this person had ever tried to rob. He was very nervous and things. Anyway, the man got belligerent with him and ended up grabbing Funakoshi's umbrella and trying to hit him with it. And even in his 70s, this man had excellent reflexes. He says he dodged the umbrella and basically grabbed the man by his testicles, which is kind of, but very effective as far as self-defense goes. Luckily for this man that attacked Funakoshi, a patrol happened by at that point in time, and Funakoshi was able to turn the robber over to them. And he said that he remembers that incident with shame, that he used karate offensively. Obviously, this is how he felt about it, and me hearing the story or reading the story related to me from him, I felt that appropriate steps were taken. He did not kill this man. He defended himself. The man struck first. The man was trying to rob him, and he used karate in the way that it was meant to be used, to defend himself. He probably could have dialed back the reaction a bit. As I said, grabbing a man by the testicles, that's pretty extreme as far as a self-defense measure goes, but effective, which is why it worked in this case. Anyway, that is the way that this autobiography, I should say, is related. It's through these series of vignettes where he talks about what happened in his life and what got him from point A to point B to point C. And it's fascinating to read how he started his life in Okinawa, how he went to Tokyo later and brought karate to Tokyo, and from there he trained various masters who then took it to the rest of the world. And after World War II with the American GIs, that's how he got invited to the United States to do tours in the United States to teach masters who came to the United States to bring karate to the U.S. And from there, it basically went to the rest of the world. Anyway, very good book, very good read. Both the skill of Funakoshi in writing is evident, and as well as whoever translated this, they did an excellent job while I can't read Japanese, it may be more compelling to read in Japanese, but in my mind, it didn't lose anything in the translation. I have, if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I've read other books that have been translated into English, and I have read books that have been translated from English into other languages, well, into Italian, that's the other language, and there is a certain amount of skill that obviously the author needs to have in order to write well, but the translator needs to have that skill as well to bring the author's vision to life in that new language. And I feel that sometimes the translator didn't do that as great a job as they could have. In this case, the translation was excellent. So if you're interested in karate, learning more about it, learning about one of the masters who felt it was his calling, if you will, to bring it to the rest of the world, this is an excellent book, and I highly recommend it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. As always, like and subscribe, and please if there's something that you've read that you'd like me to comment on, if there's a book that you would recommend, please do so in the comments. And as always, enjoy what you're reading.